For the past 22 years, Kevin Gragg has been our director and videographer for Oklahoma Gardening. He has spent numerous hours editing the show over those past 22 years. He's traveled thousands of miles, shooting different segments throughout the world, and has worked with 4 hosts in his time. What you might not see is that behind the scenes, we become like family. And although we're here to announce that he is retiring from the show, we couldn't let him leave without joining us on this side of the camera first. So, Kevin Gragg, if you don't mind joining us.
Hey.
Welcome to this side.
Wow, I know, through the looking glass.
Yeah.
It's pretty weird.
So, you actually have been on the camera before.
Yes, yeah, a couple of times.
Yeah, so you are a gardener, obviously,
yes,
a little bit.
Yes, enjoyed it, you know, did a little bit of work in college and high school, and then, you know, actually took a class in college at the prodding of my aunt, but then didn't come back to it really till I started doing the show.
Excellent. Well, that's been 22 years that
yes,
you've been doing this show. So
and
let's talk
some.
a little about your experience with the show and how it's changed. So you worked with 4 hosts, right?
Yep, 4 and a half. Did an interim with Ray Campbell, former host.
Okay. And then who were the other?
And then it was Brenda Sanders and Steve Owens and Kim, and then you.
Okay. So Kevin, in those 22 years, I mean, obviously we've done numerous shows just with my 5 years here. I mean, we've got so many memories, but I can't imagine over the 22 years what you've experienced. Tell us a little bit about your favorite memories.
Oh man, so there's so many. The people that we get to meet are just, I mean, as you know, it's just the best of the best as far as human beings. We get to see amazing things, travel to interesting places, get behind people's, you know, backyards and kind of see, you know, where they're playing.
So what are some of your favorite places you've traveled?
Some of the favorite places, of course, the international, the Japan was amazing. The trip to Italy with Barb recently was just, you know, an experience that I'll always remember. Canada was very cool. We went to Butchart Gardens, and the director of Hort basically literally removed the chain from in front of like protected areas and said, "This is your garden." And I was like, "Woo!" And then, you know, then just locally, all of the regional tours, it's so that we live in an amazing state, and it's beautiful and diverse and interesting, and just a pleasure to go and visit and bring that back on the show. Some of the big, I guess, individuals that stick out are Steve and Laura and I visited on a regional tour this woman named Ruth Boyette, and she was 93, I believe, at the time, and she lived on a Centennial Oklahoma homestead. And so her family had been there since the land run, and she was super knowledgeable about all aspects of gardening, and we had the most incredible experience with her and her garden that she had literally gardened for 93 years. And it was amazing. And then, of course, it's hard to choose, but from so many wonderful experiences, but I would say another just absolutely great experience was when we did a regional tour with Ian Thompson down in Antlers, Oklahoma, and we just had a couple, 3 days with him, and he was just a wonderful, wonderful man, and showed us so many cool things at his place, and we built fires and we cooked, and it was just a great, wonderful
found a few ticks, if I
yes,
remember
yes,
that
we
trip
did find
too.
a few ticks, and
locked our keys in the car down there in Atoka.
Yeah, it's all, you know, and that's part of the thing, is that the experience is the whole thing, and the more you endure, it's kind of seems that the better the experience is sometimes.
Yeah, and we kind of have a running joke that a road trip isn't complete until we've turned around at least once.
At least once. And so that hardly ever have we had to purposefully turn around, because it usually happens just naturally.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know, you know, my role on the job, but tell me a little bit as far as being the videographer and the director. What were some of the most stressful, you know, you have different stresses than what I have. So.
Right. You know, one of the big stresses is, especially on like tours, either regional tours or garden tours, it would be the pace. You know, we would go sometimes 12 to 15 hours in a day trying to get everything. and making sure that you got it then, because you couldn't go back. It's not like at the Botanic Garden. And so that stress and the stress of wanting to capture these people's places, the beauty of it, and relay that to the audience. And then, of course, in the old days, before we ended up with an editor working with the show, it would be like long, late hours putting the show together, and that stress of making it good.
Yeah.
You know, making each episode as good as I can make it.
Yeah. Well, because of those long hours, a lot of times our family gets involved in the process. Yeah. So, you know, I know my kids have been on the show, and your kids have also sort of grown up over the past 22 years on the show.
My son was like, what, 3 or 4 months old and whenever I started. And so if anyone remembers, we had a bulletin board that looked like a bulletin board, and there would always be a picture that changed of this little baby and then infant. And that was my son. And then my daughter has been on the show. She's been on since she was very small. And then, you know, just a couple of years ago, she was in Camp Turf, the wonderful Camp Turf program, and she did a segment on the show. So, yeah, throughout, because it's always easy, you know, if I could shoot, you know, the B-roll, the cutaways of the show at home, and use free models of my family, then, you know, we would always take advantage of that.
That's excellent. So tell us a little bit about the technology has changed dramatically.
Right.
Which influences the quality of our show, the way you're shooting. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, the cameras were one step above tube cameras whenever I started. They were big, huge, heavy things that didn't have a lot of capabilities. And I was the first director of the show to do computer-based editing. Before, it was all literally in a giant room filled with racks of equipment, and you would, you know, cut between multiple big decks that cost tens of thousands of dollars. And I took it to do it on a computer. And then we were actually the first show to go widescreen on OETA, which we were really proud of, although that was quite a hoop that we had to jump through for that. And then we were the first show actually on OETA local that was in HD, and we were the first show that was that shot on 4K. So we have really, through the grace of our, you know, employers really, you know, valuing Oklahoma gardening, we have always been able to maintain good equipment. Yeah. We've always tried to be frugal, I think, but we've always been able to really try to be out there on the cutting edge of bringing the beauty of what we're doing, because it's...
And now that includes, you know, devices and cameras such as the GoPro and the drone. You had to go get an FAA license actually to do that.
I had to get certified so that we can fly the drone around, and that just gives so many unique images and perspectives that allow you to show the garden. Whenever we travel, the old days, we traveled with one camera with one lens. That's what we had. Now there are 5 different cameras that shoot the show on any given show, and probably what 7 or 8 lenses to choose from on a couple of those cameras. So it's completely different, and hopefully if you look at the shows today versus the shows, you know, 20 years ago, there's a bit of a difference in the viewing quality, I guess.
Right. Some of the classics channels, if you go back, it's hard to tell even what that plan is, because it's so grainy.
It's so grainy. The resolution is literally, compared to what we shoot now, about 1/20th of the resolution. So, I mean, that's not a lot of dots.
Okay. Well, so knowing that you have been watching a gardening show for the last 22 years, often twice, because you would film it and then you would edit it.
Probably more like 12, 15 times.
And then also that you took a horticulture class as an undergraduate, and then you recently were in the Payne County Master Gardener training. We just felt like we wanted to test your horticulture knowledge just a little bit. You can't get out of here, out of the university system, without taking a final. So,
all right, great.
Are you ready for this?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
So first off, do you know what this plant is?
This one always trips me up. It is plumbago, but I always, sometimes you confuse certain plants, and it's plumbago, flax, and phlox look very similar in a lot of their form, and especially the flower. But this is plumbago.
Okay. So typically, what is the average last freeze date in Oklahoma?
The average last frost-free date for Payne County is April 15th.
Okay.
The Panhandle should keep a little bit.
Well, apparently we should all keep
this
year. But okay, so what is the difference between a heirloom, a cultivar, and a GMO?
An heirloom is a plant that has been passed on that may have been a certain selection, but has been just passed on over years from person to person through cuttings or collecting seed. What was the second one?
Cultivar?
Cultivar is a particular selection of a plant that has been named and has been presented into the industry as for sale as that particular plant. And a GMO is a and this is we didn't get to this. We were always going to. A GMO is a genetically modified organism, and that is a plant or animal, I guess, that has been genetically modified through like a technology like a CRISPR or something.
Okay.
You know.
Some gene splicing.
Some gene splicing.
Okay. All right. I'll accept those answers. Yeah. When do you prune your roses? That's one of our popular questions that we get.
You prune the roses, usually you can do it kind of in the fall too, but it's usually you can do it in the spring before they bud out, and then they put all their energy into the buds.
All right. Yeah. Well, very good. And one final question. This is sort of a bonus. What's your favorite plant? My favorite plant has got to be, there's so many wonderful plants, and I always throw out, like, you know, Johnny Satterley said, never met a euphorbia I didn't like, which that's a pretty good plant. But Spigelia marylandica, the Indian pink, is just an amazing plant. It will grow anywhere. Native. It's a native. People should have it, multiples in their garden. I have yet to kill one, so which is something for me. Excellent. Well, Kevin, we want to thank you for your contribution over the past 22 years and just your wealth of knowledge to the horticulture industry. You've done so much, and it's been a pleasure to work with you in my 5 years. I'm a little disappointed you're leaving me because I'm still here, but I know that you've got great things ahead of you, and we're excited for you. Yeah. And I know that you'll still be sharing plants with me, right? Oh yes, oh yes. I mean, you know, we're family now. Yeah. I mean, and so that's what everyone that I've worked with, both at Ag Communications and in horticulture, are my family. And it has been an incredible ride, and I would not trade it for all the money in the world. Well, thank you so much, Kevin. We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. You can also find even more videos on our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.